It was supposed to be the beginning of a new chapter. Felicia Johnson, a 24-year-old aspiring model from San Diego, had just landed in Houston to celebrate her birthday and explore job opportunities. Confident, stunning, and driven, she had dreams bigger than her hometown could contain. That Friday night, she booked a ride to an adult entertainment venue called Cover Girls, hoping to land a job as a dancer and make some quick money while scouting the modeling scene in Texas. But when she didn't return to her hotel and stopped answering her phone, alarm bells started to ring. Her family grew worried. Her father, Kevin Johnson, hadn't heard from her since the night before. Felicia wasn't someone who just disappeared, especially not without checking in. After dozens of unanswered texts and calls, he flew into Houston himself, desperate for answers. He reported her missing on April 16th, and from there, the nightmare spiraled. Her bloody phone was found discarded on the side of the road, miles from the club where she was last seen. The battery had been ripped out, an obvious attempt to prevent anyone from tracing it. There were no other signs of her. No wallet, no purse, no ID, just a single gruesome clue left behind on the asphalt. Police began canvassing the area and checking surveillance footage. Cover Girls admitted she came for an audition but was turned away. After leaving the club, she reportedly got into a man's car. That would be the last time anyone saw her alive. But behind the scenes, someone was already erasing her. What Felicia didn't know, and what investigators would uncover weeks later, was that the man who picked her up wasn't just some random stranger. He was Chukwuebuka Nwobodo, a 28-year-old self-proclaimed pastor, and he had a long history of hiding secrets behind the mask of faith. He called himself Steno, but what police found on his phone exposed a monster. The last known person to see Felicia Johnson alive was 28-year-old Chukwuebuka Nwobodo. He picked her up near an upscale Houston hotel after she reportedly answered an online ad for escort services. The two had been texting. He promised her quick cash. Felicia, likely thinking it was a standard meetup, got into his car. But what investigators uncovered next was chilling. Phone records placed Nwobodo's device near the location where Felicia's bloody phone was later found. When they searched his apartment, they found heavy-duty cleaning supplies, latex gloves, and a gun, but no sign of Felicia. A forensic sweep revealed blood in the bathroom and on a bed sheet, both matching Felicia's DNA. It didn't stop there. On his phone, Nwobodo had searched for how to destroy evidence and dispose of a body. He even Googled how to be a serial killer. Police also discovered disturbing images of dismembered women and violent fantasies stored on his device. After Felicia Johnson stepped into Chukwuebuka Nwobodo's car that night, she vanished, leaving behind only silence, confusion, and a blood-stained phone tossed along a desolate Houston road. Police later discovered chilling evidence inside Nwobodo's apartment and car. The blood found in his bathtub and on his clothing was confirmed through DNA analysis to belong to Felicia. As Houston PD launched a statewide manhunt, Felicia's family was left in an emotional purgatory. They knew she was likely gone, but they couldn't bury her. They couldn't say goodbye, and they couldn't shake the gnawing feeling that something even darker was still unfolding. Once Houston PD uncovered the grisly scene inside Chukwuebuka Nwobodo's apartment, he became the prime suspect in Felicia Johnson's disappearance and presumed murder. But by the time authorities pieced it all together, Nwobodo was already gone. He'd vanished without a trace, slipping through the cracks and triggering a manhunt that would stretch across Texas and beyond. What made it even more infuriating, Nwobodo had already been questioned by police and released. Just days after Felicia disappeared, he willingly walked into the station, casually speaking to detectives. At the time, they didn't have enough evidence to hold him. He claimed he never picked her up, that he didn't know anything about a missing girl. He came off as calm, careful, and calculated. Hours after that interview, he was gone. When officers raided his apartment shortly afterward, the evidence told a different story, one soaked in blood and deceit. Billboards with Felicia's face lit up across Houston. Her family pleaded for help on national TV. But Nwobodo stayed hidden. No digital footprint, no credit card activity, no known associates offering leads. Just silence, the same silence he left in Felicia's wake. As investigators peeled back the layers of Felicia's disappearance, a chilling digital trail began to unfold. The man she'd met initially just another face on a dating app, wasn't some casual flirtation. His online presence revealed red flags hiding in plain sight. Fake names, profiles with conflicting details, multiple photos clearly filtered to hide facial scars. Most disturbing of all, messages to other women, eerily similar to the ones he'd sent Felicia, charming, manipulative, and often aggressive when turned down. Authorities recovered text threads from her phone. The man had bombarded her with messages the night she vanished. One read, "I'm outside. Come on, don't make me wait." Another, "You said you weren't scared. Prove it." In the cold silence that followed her disappearance, those texts became haunting echoes of a woman walking straight into danger, convinced by pressure, maybe even threats. The IP address used to set up his fake profiles was traced to a short-term rental apartment, booked under an alias. Surveillance footage from nearby stores showed Felicia's car cruising past the complex just before midnight. But inside that building, no cameras, no visual confirmation of her ever leaving. It was as if the earth swallowed her whole after stepping through that door. Her mother, trembling with grief, appeared on every local station, holding her daughter's photo like it was a lifeline. She wouldn't just leave, she told reporters. Something happened. Someone took her. Her father, normally quiet, broke down in front of cameras, pleading with the public. "Please, if you know anything, say something. Don't let my baby stay missing." But what shocked everyone even more was the police response, or lack of it. Despite mounting digital evidence, clear suspects, and growing media attention, authorities dragged their feet. It took nearly a week just to get a warrant for the suspect's apartment. By then, he was gone, disappeared, just like Felicia. That silence, that inaction, fueled outrage. Activists rallied outside the police department. Protest signs asked the questions everyone was thinking. If Felicia were white, would she be found already? And how many missing black women have to vanish before someone listens? It wasn't just about Felicia anymore. It was about every woman who went missing and never made headlines. Weeks dragged on with no answers until everything changed in the most horrifying way possible. A group of sanitation workers clearing an illegal dump site on the city's outskirts noticed something wrapped in plastic, half buried under construction debris. At first, they thought it was a mannequin. But when one of them peeled back the torn black plastic, the stench hit first, then the sight of what used to be a beautiful young woman. Dental records confirmed what her mother already knew in her heart. It was Felicia. The same vibrant girl with a love for music and a dream of becoming a nurse was now reduced to a line in a coroner's report. The autopsy was brutal. She'd been strangled, beaten, and there were signs of prolonged restraint. She had suffered, and whoever did this had taken their time. The discovery flipped the case from a missing person to a homicide. And now, all eyes turned back to the man Felicia had last been seen with. The one she texted about. The one her friend saw her get into the car with. His name? Darnell Price, 33 years old, previously charged and acquitted of assaulting another woman in 2019. A known predator hiding in plain sight. But Darnell was gone. Gone before Felicia's body was even found. His apartment was cleared out, and surveillance showed him boarding a bus heading west, days before police had even connected the dots. It was clear. He knew what he'd done, and he knew the clock was ticking. The FBI got involved, issuing a nationwide alert. His face hit the news, mugshot and all. And suddenly, this wasn't just a local story. It was national. A manhunt began, stretching from Georgia to California. But for Felicia's family, it was already too late. Justice was now a slow-moving machine, and they were trapped waiting. Felicia Johnson's case didn't just end with headlines, it carved a permanent scar in her community. Her mother, anguished yet unshaken, became a relentless voice for victims of violence. She spoke on news outlets, marched in vigils, and pushed lawmakers to reevaluate how missing black women are handled by law enforcement. If Felicia had looked different, maybe they would have listened sooner, she said. That sentence cut deeper than any statistic ever could. Darnell Price was eventually captured, nearly 5 months after Felicia's body was found, in a Greyhound station in Denver. He was tired, thin, and out of money. But it wasn't remorse on his face. It was indifference. Like he thought he could just disappear and start over. He now faces capital murder charges, along with charges related to obstruction and fleeing prosecution. But no sentence, no courtroom victory could ever restore what Felicia's family lost. Her death reignited conversations about how America treats missing women of color. Media outlets had barely touched her story until the gruesome discovery. Online sleuths and grassroots advocates filled in, where officials fell short. It wasn't just a tragedy, it became a case study in neglect, in bias, and in the urgent need for reform. Now, Felicia's name lives on in more than just hashtags. Her friends created the Felicia Johnson Foundation, aimed at raising awareness and support for families of missing persons. Her favorite charity, a children's hospital she used to volunteer for, now honors her with an annual fundraiser in her name. If Felicia's story moved you, do one thing today. Share this video. Her voice was silenced, but yours isn't. Comment below where you're watching from. And if you or someone you know is fighting for justice, let this platform be your megaphone. Subscribe to Underworld Exposé, because every case deserves to be heard, and no victim should be forgotten.